Nicolò Bini.
Hi, Taylor.
I am so fortunate to have you on today.
I'm thrilled and honored to be here.
I saw you at the Near Future Summit,
Yes.
and I was blown away.
Well, first of all, the Near Future Summit blew me away.
I mean, it really did.
Yeah.
That was my first one, by the way.
Me
I was
too.
a virgin. Really?
Me too. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brave, and you got up on that stage, huh? And
Well,
blew us all out of...
it was incredible. Honestly, first of all, just that incredible group of people in that beautiful place. Zem Joaquin just like threw that together in such a beautiful, beautiful way. I was just elevated and so inspired. It's nice, especially these days, to be juiced.
I was so humbled that I didn't even get to pitch myself because I felt like I was among gods, and I was so overwhelmed. I realized I didn't tell anyone what I did for a living. And then I got back to town and I was talking to my friend Gardner about you, and he's like, I know him.
Gardner
and I said,
Robinson.
do me a favor, get him on my podcast because I'm a little shy. So that all worked out really well.
Yeah, it certainly did for me. And it's wonderful to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So let's talk about your company. You are the CEO and I believe co-founder of Binishells.
Well, there's a history to it. My father is one of the few people in history who's developed a new way of building. And incredibly, back in the 60s, he developed this new way of building that was based on using air pressure to lift and shape monolithic thin shell domes. And because he invented this technology, he's built more domes than anybody else in history, which is quite incredible. 1,623 countries. And, when I was a little boy, I would translate his papers. So he'd be speaking at NASA or a big symposium, and he would write them in Italian, and I would translate them for pocket money, basically. And, of course, it was the most incredible gift because I was able as a boy to get into my father's head. He's a genius, and sort of see how he thought and how he thought about design and how he thought about construction. And it's a really relevant topic because we spend so much money on our homes and we spend so much time inside them. And of course, time and money are our most valuable resources. And the fact that this industry hasn't really evolved, unlike everything else, in the last, depending on how you look at it, some people say since the Romans, because we certainly don't build as well as they do, but certainly since the Industrial Revolution. And again, this is what we depend on for our very own survival, shelter.
And emotional well-being.
Emotional well-being. And so we've really gotten on the wrong track because we haven't evolved the technology. And as you're pointing out, we are sort of separating ourselves from nature and therefore from ourselves by inhabiting these geometrical constructs that have nothing to do with the way nature builds, the way nature is, and therefore do psychological damage. So incredibly, we're in this weird situation, right? So we think of ourselves as great consumers. We do all the research. We look at where to buy what cars, the fuel efficiencies, all those things. But we don't think about the thing that we spend most of our money on and all of our time in.
We've advanced everything but the most significant part of our lives.
Incredible.
And where we raise our children.
Where we raise our children, where we teach our children.
Where our comfort is, where our heart lives.
I know.
It's insane.
And it turns out that these things that we entrust with our families, we entrust with all our important belongings, where we spend all our time and money, are not only not efficient from the basic premise of how you would judge shelter to be. In other words, safety. They are unsafe. We've seen that in the recent fires. But psychologically, they're unsafe because they are separating us. These corners, these planes, these right angles do not exist in nature. And there's a very good reason. There's a structural reason for that. but there's also psychologically a reason that if it doesn't exist in nature, and if it doesn't exist as part of our natural construct, why would we entrust that kind of geometry to our children, to raising our children, to housing our families? It just is incredible.
It's perplexing. How did these geometric inorganic shapes become a part of our local fabric of the way we live? How did that even happen?
So, there's a lot of ways to answer that, but my particular point of view is that between the wars, we became, and in the Industrial Revolution, we became in love with our technologies, with our capacity to dominate nature. And
Beautiful.
in taking on this sort of modernist, this futurist perspective of ourselves and our place in the world, we have developed this means of separating ourselves almost on purpose from ourselves. And so we've gone on this divergent track where nature went in one direction and we foolishly have gone in another, thinking that nature is a tool that we can use, that we can take advantage of, not recognizing that we depend on nature for our own survival, but not only that, for our own happiness and for our own psychological balance. And therefore, we are just doing ourselves and nature a disservice. And again, foolish, because the moment that nature, and it's happening, recognizes that we're not fitting within its mold, it expels us. It expels us. It gets rid of us because it doesn't need us. It is built to survive. And if we're hampering that capacity, then it will very easily get rid of us. And guess what? We're not treating nature well. It's not treating us well in return. And, shame on us, because it does not serve us correctly. We are lying to ourselves when we think that we can survive without nature. I mean, it should be quite simple. And our greatest designers, people like Frank Lloyd Wright, have taught us that. They have said, look at nature, study nature, live with nature. It will never let you down. Let it teach you how to live, how to design, and those answers will flourish and will serve you multifold. You'll think that you're solving one problem, but you'll realize that the natural way enables you to solve many, if not all, problems. And that's been my personal journey.
And that's absolutely beautiful and well said. And while Frank Lloyd Wright was a pioneer, we haven't really moved forward from that, right? I mean, in many ways, we've moved backward.
Exactly right.
So while all this stuff is just accelerating at such enormous rates of speed, our construction has not.
Is at a standstill, and as you say, maybe in reverse gear. It's crazy. Our buildings are unsafe. In fires, we've seen entire neighborhoods being swept away up in smoke. In landslides, in earthquakes, in high winds. Entire neighborhoods. And this is also a cyclical problem. So we've seen, places like Florida rebuilding in the exact same way. And guess what? Same thing is happening here in California. And our responsibility is to say, hang on a second, let's think before we act. So much energy, so many natural resources go into construction. Surely we can do better than what clearly doesn't work. Doesn't work practically in terms of safety, and as we're discussing, doesn't work psychologically in terms of aligning ourselves with nature and allowing us to survive.
So would you say that the Binishells sort of mimic or have biomimicry elements? And
100%.
would you
100%.
tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we rely, again, on air pressure, not only to build, but also to design. So we're asking nature's principles, we're relying on nature's own laws to help us design and build. What happens is that when you use these sort of very elaborate tools to analyze structurally how such structures perform, the computer comes back and tells you this is perfect. Typically, you would put in a building and the computer would analyze where the weak points are. Because, of course, when you have a beam to column connection, that 90-degree corner is the weakest way of transferring loads possible. Okay? So
And you have no corners.
Yeah, and we have no corners. We distribute loads in the most effective way possible based on nature's principles, not us telling nature what to do and then analyzing the results, but asking nature how to do it and then finding those results are poetic from a structural standpoint. That then in turn enables us to use less materials, so stronger structures using fewer resources and fewer man hours, because again, the heavy lifting is being done by air pressure. And so big wins from all these different perspectives, not the least of which is these beautiful curves, these undulating forms, elevate us, they inspire us, they
They're poetic.
They're poetic. And what could be more flattering than to say that they're natural?
I mean, they sort of work with the sacred geometry of the space around them. And I'm sure
geometry is exactly right.
Would you say that?
They bounce light in ways that are, uplifting. You walk through these spaces and after a while you realize, wait a second, the lights aren't even on. And it's because this glow, diffused light, which is the most comfortable light and the most flattering light and the most soothing light. And same thing acoustically, same thing the way that views are framed.
Acoustically,
it's
it must
beautiful.
So you also have this frequency that's probably bouncing off the walls and creating sort of a higher elevated space. And that cannot be understated, how significant that is to the mental. Imagine being stuck in one of those during COVID instead of these boxes, apartments that people live in.
Exactly. We all know and use the expression on edge, right? That puts me on edge.
There's a reason we're talking about edge is right.
There's a reason. It's psychologically, as animals, we see sharp corners and angles as threatening to us because we've bumped our heads against them enough times, and we've seen that those are danger elements. So we're surrounding ourselves with danger elements. Danger. So it's stressful. It puts you on edge. On the other hand, when you surround yourself with organic shapes, Harvard did a study where, people were asked to choose different sofas, and there were very rectilinear ones, and then there were very organic and soft ones, and people always went, 99.9% of the people all went towards that soft, organic shaped sofa. They've done studies on children and how well they are able to absorb information in boxes versus curves. And again, the curve puts you at ease, but enables you to absorb and to be educated and to learn. And so all of these wins happen. It should be pretty obvious, actually.
But I mean, it should not be progressive movement, if you think about it, right? But it is.
Yeah. You'd think that we wouldn't have diverged. Back in the medieval times, the master builders, where the very concept of the architect comes from, would be builders, and they would study nature and they would look at materials, and then they would develop these cathedrals, these incredible Gothic cathedrals that were, you look at them, they look organic. They're not trying to be organic. They are just trying to
Get you closer to God.
exactly
Right.
express the beauty of nature and therefore elevate you as if you were in a stone forest, right?
A cave.
With a cave with light beautifully being speckled and filtered through a tree's canopy. These were the original, let's say, cathedrals, a grove of trees. But now man is trying to copy nature. We were on the right track, but guess what? Then the Renaissance came along, and we became in love with our learning and with mathematics, and we sadly separated ourselves further and further until the modernists came along and said, we need machines for living.
They're statues that honor ourselves. These buildings are for honoring ourselves.
Sadly, we think so. They're for, let's say, they're for honoring our ego.
Our egos, correct.
Yeah. And that's where we always go wrong.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I've always been stupefied at how the highest premium on a view is a city view. I can't even believe it. It's like, why would you ever want to look out on tons of unnatural light that is affecting your mind and your brain so poorly? But this is yet what people are still paying the highest premium on real estate for.
Exactly
I mean, you
right.
look out here, it's only green.
Exactly right. And you know, the hope is that one day we will realize that these boxes are not us. They're harmful. They put us on edge, and that we can begin to flow with nature and design with nature's principles, and therefore develop even a cityscape that enhances the natural topography. At our best as designers, we can enhance the natural environment. Think of, for example, the beautiful Golden Gate, right? That's a beautiful bay. It's a mouth of a spectacular bay, but it's rendered even more beautiful by a bridge that crowns that point where the two land masses pinch together. And the reason that that bridge is so objectively beautiful is that it tells you how it works. It tells you that its cables are working in tensile, in tension to support a lightweight deck.
There's an elegance.
There's an elegance. So when we design with nature, knowing the properties of material, another thing that Frank Lloyd Wright taught us is design in the nature of materials, because steel works in one way versus concrete and masonry works in a completely different way. And what's interesting is, there's a lot of designers today that will not even consider how their buildings are built. They will say, I want curves, and therefore get a piece of steel and an I-beam and just curve it. But that is not in the nature of an I-beam. When you think about an I-beam, it's designed so that it won't bend. And the act of bending an I-beam is 180 degrees from what it should be doing, for what it was built for. And so you have to think, if you want curves, let's think of a natural way of creating curves, a way of enhancing the material that is being used. And when you combine low-carbon concrete with reinforced steel, you develop this incredibly strong material, both in compression, which concrete does very well, and tension, where the steel is working. And you develop this minimal 4-inch thick shell that bridges hundreds and hundreds of feet. And environmentally, you're using less material. So that's good. Lower carbon footprint.
How do you create a low carbon cement?
So the operative word is concrete. Concrete is a
concrete
mixture.
Different than cement?
Cement is the binding agent in concrete, and it's the polluting agent.
It's the polluting agent.
It's the glue.
And it creates heat.
You create heat in order to make it. Now, there's a lot of materials that one can use instead of concrete. back the Romans used fly ash, which is a volcanic ash, and because it was built
Right, of course.
by nature at very high temperatures, and therefore they could, just go to Mount Vesuvius and get some fly ash, and that's how they built their concrete. Today, we've got a lot of different additives that we can use instead of cement, because cement does have a high carbon footprint, and develop low carbon concretes. However, when you look at the overall life cycle and you compare wood, construction lumber, which is taken from the forest to a mill, cut, treated with all sorts of toxins, put into a kiln, taken out, and then subjected to more toxins, and then packaged. And that entire life cycle makes a pound of wood 10 times the the embodied energy of that same weight of concrete. So concrete is bad because we make more of it than anything else as a species. We make far more concrete. However, good concrete, low carbon concrete, used in monolithic thin shells has a fraction of the environmental impact of every other material. And wood is, steel, it gets worse from there.
So now, for example, we have a perfect opportunity to create a city, a smart city,
yes,
using the Binishells.
Yes.
You know what I'm speaking of. We're speaking about Palisades.
Yes.
Do you have politicians on board? Do you have people on board? Is our government evolved enough to see the beauty and the majesty in something like this? Or are we not quite there yet?
Well, one would hope so, okay, because we are California. We're the tech capital of the world. We seem to be doing everything else way ahead of everybody else. And here's an opportunity to say, what a wonderful political opportunity. We have the technology.
Could you imagine?
It's homegrown, and we can show people an alternative. And that alternative is better, it's safer. We can use
more environmentally.
It's more environmental.
Right? Everything we pretend to be.
Yes, everything that we pretend to be and that we talk about being. And here's an opportunity to make good on that promise. We've spoken to the team at Steadfast, and we've spoken to the team being spearheaded by Caruso. And look, they love what we're doing. I know that Governor Newsom is also aware of what we're doing.
And how does he feel about this?
I know that Nancy Pelosi is aware of what we're doing. And they are all very, very big fans. They love the concept. And all we have to do is find the right project. And, Altadena has community centers, has schools, has civic buildings that need to be built. Malibu, the same thing. When we spoke to the Steadfast LA people, we took them through the project that we did in Malibu, and they were absolutely blown away. Not only at the efficiencies, the safety, the environmental,
finances,
the cost, the speed, all very important.
Right.
Very, very. Time is money, and we can build 3 times faster. But standing in those spaces, seeing their eyes light up, it was beautiful because they recognized how powerful, how elevating these buildings can be for a community that's really being shaken up.
It would make California look good again in the eyes of the world.
Exactly.
So what's stopping it? Or is it not stopped? You don't know yet. Are you in a bidding?
Know.
We
don't know. Yeah, we are undergoing the process of presenting. We are looking for people that will help us, execute these structures, and in terms of, financial assistance. And we have the technology to show, that we can learn from our mistakes. And the time is now. If you consider doing things the wrong way again in California, it to me, it's just so sad.
What if you were to sell Binishells as sort of a environmental activism? Really, and just get people on board and start a movement. I
Well,
mean, that's oftentimes what it takes to get governments to move.
yeah, yeah, I agree with you.
And it is sort of an environmental activism.
It
Don't you think
absolutely
so?
is. It's environmental. It's basic safety. It's psychologically elevating. It again, when you tap into nature, you get wins at all levels. And how?
Yeah, it's a win-win. This is why it's so perplexing. Like, what's holding them back from?
Well, every journey begins with a step in the right direction. And at Binishells, we are preparing ourselves for making a big difference internationally.
Right, it's going to be. It sounds like it's also going to be one of those things that's a leap. Once it catches on, it's going to be, it's unstoppable.
Think about
It's going to look like little hobbit hills.
yeah. People are already, let's say, there's always the cutting edge, and those people, our clients, have seen the future.
And you've got some big ones. I saw that. You have some
we're very fortunate to have
big
some
names.
big names
Correct.
behind us, and some other big names that are watching what we're doing and are captivated by it, and see the potential. And we just have to keep heading in the right direction. Right now, we're working on affordable housing systems that can be used at the disaster relief level, at the affordable low-cost housing level, but also as very practical ADUs in people's backyards. These are buildings that...
Excuse me, what's an ADU? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. An accessory dwelling unit. So
like a second, like a
yeah,
pool
like a
house,
granny
or
flat
got
kind
it.
of deal.
Okay, got it.
And the codes are changing now in California to enable people much faster and easier to build a secondary structure on their property, because from an urbanistic standpoint, there's tons of wins, right? You get higher densities, you get secondary incomes. That's all taxable and a benefit. You get more concentrated urban spaces. All of these things work on a number of levels. Well, when you can build those buildings faster, more affordably, greener, and provide you and your family with a safe shelter in the case of an earthquake, which we know unfortunately is coming, and other fires and high winds and tidal waves and all those other things that we have to consider. And then sadly, we also have to consider the biohazards that we will be subject to in the future. And when you build with lots of pieces, it's not very good for keeping germs out. But when you build monolithically, one material with no connections, it's just one material that starts at the foundation, goes to the ceiling, comes back down. Those are the safest structures in terms of, another coronavirus or worse.
Really?
Yes. And so, we really have to consider all these, what we once thought of as worst case scenarios, but are now being
part of our
realistic.
Concerns.
Yeah.
Certainly, they should be the concerns of the rebuilding that goes on here.
100%. 100%.
It's hard to imagine that there would be any kind of pushback on something like this.
When people recognize that not only do they work better, not only do they cost less, not only are they faster and easier to build and more environmental, but they are beautiful. And that's the thing. I'd love to, develop a civic center where people can walk in and just be like, oh my God, this is the coolest space. And then find out, guess what? It's easier to build. It's more affordable. It's greener and safer. Or a hotel would be amazing. Do
you think it's something? I'm surprised. Like in Europe, I could see this flourishing immediately. But do you think in America there's this sort of, it impedes on the pissing contest of the wealthy who just want to build these bigger boxes, these glass boxes, these temples to themselves? Is there is there a lack of sophistication? What would hold somebody back? Like, I know if my house were burnt in the fire, there's no question this would be my go-to.
Yeah, people, first of all, a lot of people don't know about it quite yet. And so I think that when people recognize the potential of these structures, and the winds that you get, then it's going to start adopting. And then when your neighbor does it, and when you see, oh my God, actually that looks incredible. And we're building the one house that was burnt down in the Mandeville Canyon area at the very top there. Incredible location. We're building a beautiful 2-story Binishell there. And it's projects like that, projects like the one that we did in Malibu, projects like the ones that we're doing in Brazil and Saudi Arabia, Portugal, and other places, where people are going to be able to see, are going to be able to experience, and going to be able to see how it integrates not only to the natural landscape, but also into an urban landscape. And suddenly they will say, oh my goodness, this is actually what I want. And I think at all income levels, lower income, but also the super wealthy, because, I've taken... Well,
they're just getting more creative with it.
Exactly.
I mean, it's limitless what you can do.
It's limitless, and it's sculpturally gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
I've seen billionaires that have walked into some of our projects and just watched their jaws drop. Major kind of names and design people that recognize the natural beauty of these buildings, because it's one thing for me to design something that's beautiful, but when nature does it, it reaches another level of objective and energy, sort of energizing beauty, and that's what you achieve when you leverage natural principles to design and build.
And so you do think it's scalable, and you do see a future in which we're going to have cities that are created through Binishell.
I absolutely.
I do
it
too.
Would be tragic. We don't really have a choice, to tell you the truth. We have to build. If you look at the next 75 years, we need to build in those years as many homes as have ever been built in the history of man. Okay, if we build them in a way that is resource unfriendly, just that, we will become the next Haiti, where we've decimated nature against us. All the forests on that part of the island are gone, and it's just a sort of cyclical doomsday. Whereas if we build in a way that respects nature, uses fewer resources, but uses them in a smarter way, using geometry and natural principles to provide you with strength and environmental efficiency, then you get huge wins. And let me just describe what, because there's a lot of green, what's it called, greenwashing, and I want to be very, very clear. The Binishell is a monolithic shell. It is then insulated in a monolithic way. What you're creating is a vessel that, much like a glass or a bottle, has no leaks because it's one material. It's monolithic. There's no places for the substance that you're containing, in this case, the heating and cooling energy, to escape. Conversely, when you build out of hundreds and thousands of materials, you get twice or 5 times as many connections where heating and cooling loads can escape. So by virtue of that characteristic, that is, again, is designed into our solutions, you get the highest levels of energy efficiency possible.
Do you think mold reduction would also be impacted?
Absolutely.
Do you?
Oh, absolutely. It's inorganic matter, so the mold just does not, grow in, and you can build spectacular buildings, and you get all these, and I want to re-emphasize this idea that it's safer from a biological standpoint. When you have germs, they cannot get in for the same reason that it's monolithic. When you think about nature and you consider the egg, the one of the most elegant designs that nature has created, and it's the one that it puts its babies in across species.
It's so fragile, and yet you can't destroy it.
It can hold 9,600 times its own weight.
Hard edges can destroy it.
Hard edges can destroy it. That's right. That's right. That's right. But nature doesn't subject its buildings to hard edges. It's
Exactly.
winds,
This is my point.
it's exactly, water pressure, seismic, all of those are more distributed along the entirety of the
Evenly
building.
throughout the.
And that's what a dome works well with.
What's so fabulous about this, your job and your life, and is that it's not a job. It's actually a mission on some level. And so here you are with something. You're not just going to work. You're making a difference.
I know. Well, I feel so blessed. And
that's a blessing. That's what we all hope for. We all look for some element of that in what we do to justify the daily grind, and you don't have to do it.
It's incredible to me. I feel, an incredible gift and an incredible pressure, because I truly see this as being such a beneficial and powerful triple bottom line play like never before in history. I see that.
Right, the pressure's time.
But I need to get this out to the market and show people how it works, allow people to experience it, and then watch as they begin to integrate it into their most intimate space, which is the domicile, the home.
So how do you do that? How do you create a movement of this sort?
Well, we are putting the product out there at the highest levels. We've been fortunate with many of our, cutting edge and very renowned clients that they are allowing us to tell the story, enabling us to take people through there, etc.
Tours.
Yeah. And then we are now looking for investors that will enable us to take our technologies to the bottom of the pyramid. We're developing our new affordable housing technology, which is called Shelter, where we envision one builder, 1 hour, one tool, and you can build a home for people. So
let me just go back. So when you say you're looking for investors, would investors be government, or are you looking for individual money?
We're putting together just a seed round right now. And so we're looking for a very limited amount of funds. It's incredibly, we're already revenue positive as a company, and the potential to, again, it's possibly the biggest triple bottom line play in history: environmental, humanitarian, and economic. So we have incredible potential payback for our investors, and we're just looking for a very small group of sort of smart money that can help us engineer the what we call Shelter, this affordable housing technology that's applicable across a variety of different scales, and that will be the product that will revolutionize construction and will take finally construction into the 21st century.
Well, that I think I can imagine that's not imminent.
I do not have any doubts about it.
It's really about getting in front of the right people.
Yeah. A friend of mine's father was one of the early investors in Apple, and told me about when he met with Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs said, "Look, you're very fortunate that I'm taking your money." And that's how I feel about our investors, because you say that I'm gifted with this beautiful journey. I'm inviting people along for the ride, and we are going to change the whole concept of shelter: food, clothing, shelter. One of the three things we need to survive.
It's much easier to ask for money when you're doing the investor a favor, not the other way around. Do you know what I mean? It's harder when you don't know what's coming out on the other end.
There's a beautiful thing about, triple bottom line, like being able to do well and do good. And the same thing is true when you look at it from a political standpoint. I mean, those politicians that get on board with us and that enable us to show the way, I think there's huge wins for that. I remember when I presented the project that we built in Malibu to the mayor and to the head of the building department and the head of the planning department, who at first were a little shocked that I would have the goal to get them in the same room and waste their time. When they saw what we were proposing, they, to their credit, recognized that it walks the talk, and they helped us. And I thank them every opportunity I can by telling this story and saying they helped us, we showed that we could do it, and now we're off on this amazing journey. And that was our prototype. We'd never been done before.
Yeah, I think that there's something beautiful about, I think these structures bring us back to a stillness, right? They bring us back to something that we're desperately seeking. Many of us don't know what that is, right? Like it's a meditative space. It's a place that will bring clarity.
Absolutely. The house that we're doing in Mandeville is being called the womb house because it's literally, it has this
brought
space.
Back to that space of, yes.
And so many people have walked into our Malibu project,
It's genius, by the way,
and said, I feel like I'm back in the womb. And I don't think you hear that a lot. I'd never heard it before in my life.
But it's the
And
frequency,
hear,
it's the shape, yeah.
You know, like these people say it, you're just like, wow.
Like I've got something really special.
Right.
Well, I'm going to do whatever I can to help you get it out there.
Well, you are doing that.
By the way, I'm going to announce this right now. We just joined a partnership with a company called Core Live, and we have 170 million people have access to this podcast.
Wow. Congratulations.
Right?
And
yeah. So that's pretty exciting.
That's amazing.
But, when I was in New York, I was also in the real estate world, as was my father. So, yeah, I want to help bring this to fruition because you know why? It would make me feel good about myself. Like, that would be a sense of achievement for me. I want to do something productive for the environment.
Well, you are. And I think that, the potential here is massive. And our business model is actually built around that. We teach people how to fish rather than give them fish. So we license our technologies domestically and internationally to builders so that they can go into their markets, employing the local people, using local materials, and start building the right way.
Oh, that's interesting. Is that a new...
No, that was baked into our very first business model. And it's a very efficient business model from our perspective, but it's a very generous business model because it develops this sort of family.
Of course. It's not your typical real estate developer model, that's for sure.
No.
Steve Ross isn't giving people his business model.
No. We're sharing, and then our licensees become part of our R&D basis, where maybe they're coming up with new detailing concepts or new typologies that they challenge us with. And then we take all those learnings, finesse them, and then redistribute them out. So everybody wins. It's sort of like, as a business model, even organic, right?
Well, it just goes to show that you're trying to create an environment and a world that's a better place. It's not just about you.
It's about
responsibility. It's the
that
responsibility.
We have. Yeah.
And sharing something that can be helpful to all, not just to you.
Exactly.
It's not a money grab.
No, it's not about any individual, least of all me. It's about us and our families and our survival and sharing and learning together and then winning together.
I mean, even the impact that something like this would have on, the natural wildlife around. I mean, it's just, there's just no way to look at this as not see it as a win-win.
Yeah, exactly right. When a building in and of itself is an important element, but then the way that buildings work together is another incredibly important element. The landscaping around that, the positive and negative spaces, the topography that one creates with a series of buildings, as we were saying, on an urban scale. All of these things can be designed in a way that builds in pride of ownership, pride of place, pride of community. If, for example, you and I shared a place to cook together, then I might ask you for some salt. And then the next thing I'm doing is I'm entrusting you with my child or my dog. And now we've become
A community.
really close. Now you've depended on me, I've depended on you.
Now that separatedness that we're all
exactly.
experiencing, which is causing enormous depression, isolation,
100%.
all this starts to become more of a communal way of living. And I don't think people understand the mental value in that, the emotional value in that. Alleviates fear of being alone, of getting old. Suddenly you have this tapestry that's woven by everyone involved. And it's just a more beautiful way,
exactly
an original way of living.
An original way of living. Some people might say, oh no, this is some crazy hippie commune. No, that's how we live in Europe. That's how communities work in Europe. The domicile is small, and so the living room becomes this public area where things are shared, where friendships are made, where families and love is built, and it's powerful, and it's the older model. It's the traditional model that we have to get back to.
Well, millennials seem to be going back to that.
I hope
Their
so.
spaces seem to have in common spaces.
It's critical.
Right? They're interacting with each other. It's more of a community.
This idea of privacy, this, front yard separation from the world.
How about separation from each other, your
Yes.
family? You're living in a
Amen.
120,000 square foot home.
Crazy.
How do you see your children?
Yeah.
How do you connect with your wife? All it does is create separation.
Loneliness.
And the loneliness.
Yeah.
And we don't realize it, but the more space we have, the more disconnected we are.
It would seem simple and obvious, but we have somehow lost our way, and we need to get back to the principles of nature in how we build and how we communicate. And when you change your environment, the place that you spend all this time, the place that you spend all this energy and money into a far more sheltering, comfortable, womb-like, hugging environment, then things change in your mind, and all of a sudden you recognize that you can become closer to your family, closer to your neighbor, and create a sense of community and a sense of personal well-being and identity.
Of course.
Identity, which is so important.
Well, I am definitely on board. When I heard you speak the first time, I was blown away. I think we received, we got something in the mail, in the email from Near Futures, and it said, what was one of your most inspired speakers? And I wrote you down because
Thank you.
I just see the value in it, the enormous value, not short-term value. We're talking about long-term value. We're talking about universal. We're talking about planetary. And it's magic. What you're creating is magic. I hope that we see it. I hope we see it blossom in the near future.
I know that it will, and I feel so blessed to be part of it. So blessed to be here, Taylor. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
I appreciate it. Obviously, I'm incredibly impassioned about this, but I'm desperate for it to get out because I know it's rooted in all that it's good.
How do people find you?
Our website primarily, which is binishells.com. And there's an info button there, contact button, and we will be back in touch.
And I will put that on the bottom of the podcast, and there will be a link where people can look at some of the amazing designs you've created.
Thank you. And also through our Instagram, which is at Binishells and at Nicolò Bini.
Did you post your? Have you posted the?
Yeah, the talk that
you gave.
Yeah.
I'm going to post that
succinct
today.
version.
It's wonderful. It's really spectacular.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
I
you
hope
so
to see
much.
more of you, and
I really appreciate
hope
it.
to see you in the hills and in the flats and in the beach. Wherever I go, I hope to be reminded of you.
Sounds Churchillian. We shall beat them
exactly.
in this.
On the sand, on the beach. Yes.
We'll do it.
Yes. Thank you very much for coming. It was beautiful.
Thank you, Taylor. I appreciate it so much.